Yeah.
And a guess.
Where's your guess?
Okay. Do we have any, believe we have some communication from the public.
Just suppose this works.
We can hear you.
Can you hear me? Okay, good. All right, for the record, John Hologram, 4217 86th Street, here in Urbandale. And anyway, I want to speak briefly about tonight. Some of the previous board meetings, we heard some concern about the starting builder coming off of their homestead site project. And also want to acknowledge that they've been here to install construction. Right? Anyway, as you folks know, we went with the construction manager concept for this project. And in effect, then, as you know, you are general contractor. And so what you're seeing now is bills coming in from subcontractors, just like if you were a general contractor. So what I was laid out in front of you folks tonight is just a little mashup of some things that I've seen done in the past to keep track of the project. I claim this is not the original to me at all. So, anyway, I've seen schemes like this work fairly successfully. So that when you get to the end of the day, and the project is done, that you end up, just like in this case, hopefully we end up very close to 28,700,000 instead of say 32 million or 33, and then wondering where all the money. How come we got in this situation? Anyway, it's a very simple deal. And anyway, on the left side, we got all your bid orders, all 17 bid orders. I guess what we got here, and the dollar amounts were the architect's estimate. It wasn't in there. Then we go on across the thing, and then go over to the right, we got treatment of the extra charges that you're dealing with on the asbestos right now. And all the things on here are just hypotheticals. They're not drop down there and do a vertical dirt, my so-called number 3 site preparation. Okay. Dirt and fill is typically one of the most contentious things, for example, on a project. And this is the way the IDOT handles that. You bid the flat amount, and then if it takes more dirt or less dirt, this is what we pay, so many dollars per cubic yard. And if you don't like that amount, don't bid the project. Okay? That's how that works. And then also I've shown on here, just another thing, is for progress payments, like, say, like structural steel. Okay, I just popped in a number like 900,000 for structural steel. The guy's half done, the contractor, I can hypothetically say that when he's half done, we've got fabrication all done, we'll give him a progress payment. So, anyways, that's it. And of course, I know that the structural steel, 50% done. Still got a record. Then, and down at the bottom, any other items that are not part of those 17 bid orders, other expenses projects generated go on down below. Anyway, very simple. I'm sure the stall probably has something very similar to this that they can supply it with. And there's nothing unique about this stall, as far as I'm concerned. If I'm installed, I'd like to speak to the issue. Fine. Great. That's it all I'm saying. Got any questions for me? Happy to answer them after the meeting. I see the experts here. Thank you.
Thank you, John.
Thank you.
Items on 4 are for a meeting, next meeting. Although if you have questions, feel free to forward them.
Approve it.
Oh, yes.
I move to approve the agenda.
Second. So those will be there, and just a reminder to the board that that project will go through next summer as well. A lot of working around extracurricular and school activities. Of course, as most of you know, the groundbreaking ceremony was Monday the 30th for the new elementary school. The naming committee has met. Again, we met like 5 or 6 times internally to make sure we work through things. And then the official committee met to solidify the names that would go on the final survey in 3 schools. Justin Martin Elementary, Millard Olmsted Elementary, and Hickey Woodson Elementary were the final 3 choices that will go on the ballot. And then from that, the groups will come to the board. Actually, they'll give me a recommendation, and then I bring a recommendation to the board at the December 9th meeting. Just to give you a little bit of background about kind of the work we did as far as back up to get input, and that survey will go out, the final survey, from October 24th through November 7th. It'll be in the newspaper. Naturally, we have access to our family's emails, but again, trying to get it out to the public so they're aware. So we're hopefully, when we spread it out to like the chamber and the city, that they will also pass it out to the patrons. So word of mouth is usually a good way in Urbandale. That seems to work pretty well. So, the thing we do know right now, since Jensen Elementary is losing its namesake, is that one of the jobs of that committee will be to somehow officially recognize Jensen. Again, even though that building won't lose its name for several years, we'd like to move forward with that process as well. Any questions on facilities from the board?
I guess Tim's not here, but parking at the high school, has that been working out? Seems.
I would say it was, well, I think we only took actually 12 from the students in the front. It's probably more the staff and for activities that's been a challenge. I know for, I think it was 10 days, we were trying to leave that back open as well during the day from 8 to 3. And that's been a challenge a little bit, but we make do.
Just a couple more deliveries and we'll be done with that. So.
Okay, action items. So this is
First one is the first reading. This year, the board will have 2 policy reviews of, well, the 800 series and the 900 series. If you look here on the 800 series, there was, I believe, some 9 policies. Is all that Aller said that needed some modifications, and 3 of those 9 are actually brand new that we didn't have. Otherwise, the other ones are in the last thing. I just put those together. Probably easier to read since there's no.
You said this year, you mean yet in 19 or
19-20
school year? Okay.
School year. Yeah.
Do we have any questions or clarifications? Or will we just go through each item?
I certainly have a chapter I'd like to talk about, but if we want to go through each individually, I can wait till we get to that chapter.
Okay. So, okay, any questions on 808 investments? Okay, none heard. 822, student activity funds. 823, credit procurement cards. 825, reimbursement for expenses. Do we have any questions or clarifications?
I just had a question on 825. In the paragraph that starts under the heading travel outside the school district, travel outside the state by the superintendent will be approved by the board president. Is that new, and how does that look, or what does that look like? And is that only for conferences? Or is that like period?
I assume it's school-related activities. In the past, all it says in the policy was that I will work through the board president.
I guess that's what I'm wondering is, like, this makes it sound like there needs to be like some formal approval process. I just didn't know if it's just more, I don't know. I just was curious what that looks like.
I do have, I started this year a travel form for everybody, myself included, that basically when they travel, so we know up front what's being paid for by themselves versus the district. So I assume that travel form will be utilized.
And then this president would just sign it to note that you're going and what that looks like, and that would be the approver. Okay, I'm fine with that then. I just didn't really know if I understood what that meant.
Have you gone out of state?
Not
Obviously
yet,
not.
in 2 weeks, I have a conference, a student conference.
My understanding was the previous history was that you informed whoever was the president historically.
It's really just written by contract that I am as a president, but I just thought it was something that, they suggested to them, and I thought it'd be a good thing to keep, so at least the board president knows where I'm at.
Okay, yeah, I just, sounds good.
Expenditures for public purposes, number 829. It's quite compressed. This is good.
I think a lot of
Say
things
29
moved from
R1.
the next one.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
don't. I was such an optimist. Okay. Okay, so this is, yes, 829R1, use of public funds regulations involving reimbursements, supplies, staff parties, receptions.
Mary Beth, this comes from ISB?
Yes.
Correct.
Okay. This is pretty, this is spelled out a lot more than we had it before, is that right? I mean, not necessarily us.
Yes and no.
Okay.
If you look at ours, we had it really, even some things
Like a
down
map.
to $10,
Yeah.
to 100. So it's not spelled out to that specific, but yet it covers more areas.
Mary Beth, when you were putting this together, did you lay this beside the business procedures manual and the P-card manual that you guys have put together and like cross-referenced or made sure that we had consistencies? That wasn't something I was able to do before tonight, to just make sure that everything laid out.
Steve and I did look at that to see, and the P-card manual will be rolled out like November probably.
Okay,
So we did make sure, we felt like the business procedures manual covered, that's why we removed the dollar limits that were in the original one, because we felt like the business procedures manual covered those items. That was kind of overkill for it, because it was something we were monitoring anyway.
okay. Thanks.
Oh, I guess I did have a question. On 808, the language uses treasurer, while on 823, it uses CFO. 822 uses board secretary / treasurer. Do you have any idea why that language isn't consistent? I mean, it's the same position, I assume.
I would say the only one I can really speak to her is the CFO is the term that basically I put in with that person. And the other ones are just straight from ISB, so I'm not sure.
Does it seem like it might be good to be consistent?
I think we can definitely choose, I think the CFO or perhaps the board secretary, whichever term we deem, certainly legal counsel can be consistent with the terminology.
I think that the only other challenge we'll have is if we go back in all of our policies, I think you'll see all 3 of those written too. So if you're trying consistency, we're probably gonna have to change many. But that's not to say you don't want to change as you go.
I think in Iowa law, it specifies what the board secretary's roles are, what the treasurer's roles are. And so I think that's tied to code, and that's why it is referenced in that manner.
And in some districts, that could be 2 different individuals,
That
right?
is correct.
So technically,
Here, it's all one
Yeah.
person, but I have seen places where it is different people. That's true.
Is business officer also referenced in here?
No.
I don't know if it's a big deal. I just didn't know why it wasn't consistent.
We have a business manager, so.
Okay. 832. Disposal of district personal property. Okay, hearing nothing. 834, internal controls.
Catherine, that's the one that I wanted to speak about and just get a feeling for how other board members feel. My concern is looking, I think it's great that this policy has been added. I think this is a much needed addition and I'm very happy about it. Where I'm concerned is that if we have some embezzlement, some fraudulent concerns, it seems as though the entire investigation could be carried out without the broader board knowing if the board president so chooses not to tell us. I think knowing that I'm going to be in the media as responsible as every board member, if there is embezzlement or fraudulent charges, I want to make sure that every director has transparent access to information. And that's not saying that I don't think that the board president should be the one to enact calling legal counsel, but I do think the entire board of directors needs to be made aware of the investigation. So that's something that I would urge the board to consider strongly. If you want to take a recent example of the Eric Rose situation in Waukee, I know none of us want to be that board, and we will all, our names will be in the paper for this, and to not know about it would be especially difficult.
And I will say, while I do not disagree with Director Anderson, I think, again, from my limited knowledge, I would be concerned that if the board knew something in the process of an investigation, that then when you made a decision, you'd have to remove yourself. I think you have to take caution with that. While I understand you want to know.
I would say I to not know, I would view as obfuscation of information. I would have great difficulty not knowing if there was fraud and investment going on within the organization. I would be very angry if I had found out that the board president knew an investigation was ongoing and I had not been made aware.
Director Smith, not to put you on the spot, but would you have an insight on that, or?
Off the top of my head, they obviously tried to stopgap that measure with, if it involves the superintendent.
Correct.
Or the board president, that it is reported to, or was it the vice president there?
That was advice. We found that interesting.
But, and that's kind of the safeguard in there. I understand Steve's concerns. We would look into it a little bit more. I don't know that I'm prepared to say that this isn't sufficient.
Can we ask for either ISB or legal counsel for it, if there's a reason why the whole board wasn't included, and get that in writing?
And maybe.
In writing from Allers, not from
Yes,
administration.
and just so you're aware, Allers is the firm, is my understanding, that looks at ISBs, but I'm okay with getting that in writing, because this is copied 100%, so.
What I think I would like, and I don't know how other board members would feel, I would think instead of playing a game of phone where kind of Steve calls legal counsel, in this situation, I would almost be interested in having Catherine call legal counsel rather than delegating it to Steve. So it's directly to the board. But I mean, it's not like Steve can't handle it. Of course he can. It's just more of a direct link to the board. I don't know how involved you've been with legal counsel, Catherine, this year. And I just think it'd be nice to touch base with them.
I mean, if Allers had an official response from Allers to the board, does it matter who asked the question?
I was just thinking in terms of relationship developing.
We can compromise that. I can just stop in and we can call that.
I don't have a firm. That's fine.
Sorry, Mark, can you just explain, because I had this as a question, in the 5th paragraph where it talks about bringing it before the vice president, I think you touched on that, but can you just explain it again? Because I didn't really understand that part, and typically, again, the vice president doesn't have a right to call legal counsel, it usually is the president first. So that paragraph bothered me, but you made it sound like that's to break the.
Because the president and the superintendent have primary communication on all affairs. If it's suspected of a superintendent, then it goes to the vice president so that it breaks that issue up.
Okay,
And it's simply a stopgap so that there isn't collusion between the president and the superintendent.
okay, because I just didn't really understand that piece either. I don't understand what that meant. And maybe, Stacy, what are you proposing? Are you proposing like in the third paragraph that there be something said that at this point is brought before the board, or like do you have something proposed that you were specifically wondering, or at what point it's brought before the board, or?
I don't, I think that was more of that was why I wanted more of a conversation with legal counsel, something like petty change. Does the board need to know? Probably not, at a very low level, at an administration level, high dollars. Would I want to know as a board member? Yes. So I think that would be an ongoing conversation. I don't have a proposal.
Okay.
My feeling would be that I would like more individual director involvement, and while the president and the superintendent take the lead, I would like some form of communication to be passed down to all directors.
But pending thresholds and people involved.
Correct.
Okay.
I believe so. If I understand what you're saying correctly, then yes.
Because I feel like based on what you said at the beginning regarding, you know, if it's gonna be in the papers, if it's a teacher, it can still make the papers, but you're saying if it's depending on what level, you don't know that the board would need to know. So I guess I'm thinking, I would feel that based on what you said at the very beginning, amount and level shouldn't play at all parts. That should be an all or nothing, right?
I kind of want to back up here and ask the particular provision in here that you're having an issue with, as far as the language. I just reread it again, and I mean, how I take this to be written is the board president and the superintendent have the primary responsibility, right? Because day-to-day activity, it's not our realm, and we don't need to blur those lines. And I guess, where are you seeing that you won't be told?
Because it does not explicitly state anywhere at what point the board will be informed, I would assume that the board won't be informed because it involves some internal employee investigations. And as Steve just said, he wouldn't tell us about that because he feels it may compromise.
But I think that invokes other policies that we have in place regarding employment issues and all that. I think you have to take these policies as a collective. And that's why it would go to the board president and to Steve as the superintendent. I don't see anywhere in this policy where it says that we won't know, because this is just a singular policy. It has to be taken in the broad construct.
So then can I ask a question as of right now, Steve, if you knew about potential embezzlement fraud in the organization, would you tell all board members?
I would tell me, first of all, probably check with others to confirm. I check with legal counsel on every big decision.
Of course.
That's why
So it's not a given. I want it to be a given.
Well, wouldn't this lead to, like you said, Mark, like, in my mind, this is step A. Step B goes to either there's nothing there, and we either find out, hey, just so you know, like you do, Steve, with lots of different.
Yeah, you might get something very broad, but until there's.
But if there is something, then wouldn't that activate, Mark, like you said, another policy, a discipline?
And that's what I want to know, because you're right, I don't want to know about every little thing, but there are certain things where it would be a little bit, I think, subjective as to when you would have to use subjectivity as to when to tell the board, and I don't know when we would reach that mark, and maybe that's what I'm looking for legal counsel to help more clearly define, or if there's already policies in place, what are those policies to cross-reference?
This policy, though, the intent, as I read it behind it, is to assign primary investigative responsibility, which would appropriately go to the president and the superintendent, because it is day-to-day activity that the board shouldn't be involved in. And to write something different to say that the board should all have primary responsibility for the investigation, well, that's the next step. This policy doesn't go any further than who has the primary responsibility.
And that's what I'm looking at, actually, reading through this again, even though I'm jumping ahead, but it's for your consideration. In the procedures, it says the superintendent and/or board president shall investigate reports of fraudulent activity in a manner that protects the confidentiality of the parties and the facts. All employees involved in the investigation shall be advised to keep information about the investigation confidential. So that's the part, again, you have to be very cautious. If something happens, it's the law of the land. People are innocent until proven guilty. So you guys know all the facts along the way. You don't have a decision to make.
Well, and,
Yeah,
sorry.
I'm not trying to fight you on this. I'm trying to be very conscientious on what our role should be in this and where that separation should lie, especially when we're setting. We don't want to overstep what our charge brings.
I think if it had exploded to an Eric Rose Waukee situation, I think I would want to know, and I think I would want, that's a scenario where I would have wanted to know.
Sure, but I don't think that this is that policy.
Okay,
I
so my
think
question
there's-
is, where can I find that? What is that policy then? If it's not this one, then where is it? Because maybe I'm just simply unaware.
Well, I think there's several fiduciary duties replete throughout our policy. I guess I'd turn to Steve to.
well, and
Again, they're situational again. If you're talking personnel, facilities, use of, different things.
I think Tanya has.
I do understand your question.
Tanya, I didn't think
yeah, you're fine. I just wanted to interject this because I think it helps answer the question. At the last paragraph of 834R1, which is the next one we're going to, it says, if an investigation substantiates the occurrence of fraudulent activity, so proves it's occurred, the superintendent and/or audit committee member and/or board vice president of the investigation centers on the superintendent shall issue a report to the board and appropriate personnel. So a report is required if the investigation substantiates that yes, something occurred.
And how long do they have to issue that report? Is there something where we can address that?
I think it's an investigation. I think you have a hard time of saying how long.
No, I'm not saying from the point, I'm saying from the time that it is determined that a fraudulent activity has occurred, how long do you have to notify the board? Do you have forever to notify the board? Do you have 10 days? Do you have 30 days? What does that look like?
I guess I would just assume common sense is at the next board meeting.
You'd probably do it before then, but it's not written out.
I always like things specified. I think there could be more specificity to this, and I would like to, it sounds as though I'm mistaken, and that when, board members will be told that there are other policies that address this, particularly, as Tanya pointed out, 829, 834, was it
834R1.
834R1, okay, 834R1. If there are any other policies that are out there that I'm unaware of, Steve, if you want to let me know or just shoot me an email with those policies, that would be great.
So I think as board members, we don't want to,
We don't want to do the investigation.
and I don't, if I can't do anything about it, I want to know when I can do something about it. Because if I know, and we don't have
I don't want to be blindsided by questions, I think, is to have that awareness, to be able to say, and not be taken aback and say, there's an issue that's being worked on right now, and, have confidence we are working on this. I'm not able to make a statement at this time. Something where you're clearly aware of the issue, not going, what, who? I think that's more of what I'm looking for, rather than to be involved in the primary
I feel
responsibility.
like it's policy, what you're looking for is their policy. It's just that timeline is the only thing.
Yeah, can we look into a timeline when was that something you would ask, you could ask the attorney about, Catherine and Steve, when you're on the phone? Like the timeline for letting the board know after fraudulent activity has been found?
Okay.
Sure.
I think it's reasonable to express that we do that at the most reasonable time, before or at the next occurring board meeting. Unless there's extreme circumstances.
Well, if it's pending an investigation, some of that information not be able to be made public, so.
No, I mean, after it's substantiated and that might have to happen in a closed session because it would damage people's reputations or whatever. I mean, you have to use appropriate judgment on that. But we can see if that's reasonable. Can you move on? Sorry, got the wrong mouse. Okay, the next one is the 834R1, which we've already read through most of it. So any other questions on this policy? Okay. I did have an error on 825, second paragraph, employees should have an apostrophe. I know, it's an English teacher's error.
That's okay.
Lines, employees, immediate supervision.
820, second paragraph, employees, immediate supervisor should have an apostrophe. Can't help myself.
Good job.
Okay, I'm assuming we don't need to go through the 800 unchanged policies, so we will move on now to miscellaneous. So 442, personal phone calls.
Are we voting on, like, do we need to vote on A
Oh, okay,
first and then?
okay, since they're cut up, yeah.
So, like, approve the first reading,
Yeah, the 800s.
the caveat of looking into time limit for policy 834R1.
So is that a motion?
Yes.
Second.
Okay, all in favor? Opposed? It's unanimous. All right. We'll now move to 442, personal telephone calls.
And this is one motion for all of B, just on,
We will have,
for all of B, okay. Thanks.
moving into this century apparently, having cell phones. 456, employee use of cell phones. Does this entire, my question, sorry to interrupt.
You go first.
Okay. 456, does that apply only to district-owned cell phones or any cell phone in the building?
I think the regulation one is more specific
Yeah.
to that. This
Okay.
is the general.
Okay.
Well, because 442 says personal cell phones. That's just about calls, not about the actual calls. Sorry.
So 456, the second paragraph, the board authorizes the purchase and employee use of cell phones as deemed appropriate by the superintendent and his or her designee. School district-owned cell phones shall be used for authorized school district business purposes. The rest of the policy does not say that they are district-owned. Can we assume that that's what they're talking about?
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I think because we have employees that have district-owned cell phones, and we have employees that we reimburse them so much per month for their use, for business use of their personal cell phone. So we have employees that fall into both buckets.
And then there's, yeah,
So I think you have to read this saying, regardless of which bucket the employee falls in, this is kind of how this works. Would you agree?
the fifth paragraph assumes that people have their own cell phones that they could use on
Break time.
break time, but they're discouraged to do it while they're on duty.
Well, that's in another policy, I think, but the assumption in this is either that they're on somehow a district-connected device
I don't think
I
so.
don't think you can-
because they're being reimbursed.
In this particular policy,
Mhm.
I took it to read that it was expansive.
Yeah, I
and
think-
included personal cell phones as well.
I think 456 is intended to just cover
Okay,
cell phones.
so that question was from an employee that doesn't have a district-owned cell phone.
So I had quite a few questions on the cell phones, and I think it's just, so monthly, it says in this policy that the monthly cell phone allowance will be determined by the board. And I'm just kind of curious how and when the board will determine that. And like, if that'll be a recommendation or what that looks like, because I know, I don't think under this term of this board, but a couple of years ago, we had conversations about if the cell phone allowance was appropriate. So just wondering what that looks like. And then, how, and if this is a new policy and we are approving the cell phone rate, then we probably need to figure out how to get that rate approved pretty soon. And then how are I think my biggest question or overall just on this policy is just that if we're reimbursing someone for business use on their personal cell phone, what rights, where does the district's rights and things end? So I don't know about at everyone's employer, but sometimes if you have a personal use cell phone, if you lose said phone, your company has the right to wipe your cell phone clean because you've lost it. We don't explain that in this policy, and if that's the district's right and that could happen to an employee, I feel like that should be part of the policy. I also struggle a lot, and I think I struggle because we're a public place. If I'm paying an employee for their cell phone and then they're found doing something not appropriate on their cell phone, whether in their personal time and their personal space, I just struggle with what's the reflection of that on the district? And just does this policy address those kind of concerns well enough is all. And that's just like an overarching concern I have just with us being a public entity. And should it be stated in here? I don't know, just do employees understand? I don't know. It's just a concern I have.
Maybe we have something in an IT type policy where we wipe data from all like Chromebooks, iPads, etc. with the fund. I don't know what's in there now, but
My question is, what are employees signing when they're hired at this point related to IT?
Oh, that's a better place, because then they're stating which reimbursement they're going with and what they're agreeing to, and maybe the policy's not the appropriate place.
There's actually a policy we have for usage of technology and internet guidelines and stuff, and that's actually one of them that needs to be updated though, because it's not into this century. So we really don't have that listed. The only thing I can say about the dollars is I don't recall that we had a conversation with the board. I think that dollar amount, let's say it's 40.
30.
And it hasn't changed since I've been here. So, and it's in individual administrators' contracts. And I don't take that, so I don't know for sure. But that's one place I've really seen that number that is in their individual contracts. It says they have that as a benefit.
So, maybe we already know this, but well, under cell phone usage, I'll ask my question first. And then, I don't think it's really possible to expect, I think it's not realistic to expect that people are sharing student information over their cell phones. Especially when you're talking along the lines of support staff, and then also with the high frequency of calls that we expect like teachers and stuff to make, or administrators to be making. I think you're gonna make calls in transition, or you're making a call on the way to a meeting. I think we're setting an expectation that we do not intend to have our staff follow. So I don't think number 2, cell phones should not be used to transmit confidential student or personal information, either verbally or written, in an expectation that people can follow. Well, because I email my kid's teacher on the phone. I mean, they could use their phone to email. So I agree.
Yeah, I just don't think we should have that. I agree with you as well, Sarah. I would like to think it's right, number 2.
But like, I think that pairs really well with like what Tanya's talking about, is a conversation about protecting that information should the device be. Yeah.
And I think even our cell phones that the district doesn't pay for, I don't have this watched a little bit, but I think once you've spoken with a family on your phone, no matter what, somehow it becomes like, it can become the property of like of the district or of anyone that wants to, like once you've had those conversations on the device, I think.
The information that lies on the device can be.
Yeah, if it was used to
Can
cross
be
the
subpoenaed,
phone,
essentially.
I think that you can have the phone or whatever, to pull that information. So, but then also like while driving, I mean, I don't want people to use it while they're driving, but I mean, I think they should follow.
along those lines, but I just don't know. I just think like we expect a lot of calls to be made, and I think we have to honor that everyone has a busy life, and if you're gonna make a call while you're driving, I don't want their job to be at risk because of that or whatever.
What if they're bus drivers?
Unless you're a bus driver. And they don't work for
But you say while driving, many cars now have Bluetooth. It's not, it's a little antiquated.
This is probably written before.
I think following the law is a good,
ASB.
we prohibit text while driving in Iowa. So,
I mean, there is
Follow
already
the Iowa
comply
law.
with applicable state and federal law and district policies and regulations.
It says that.
It says that, after though, he's prohibited from using phones while driving except in case of emergency, and any such use must comply. I think Tanya brings up a number of really good issues that would behoove Steve to go back with this policy and look at the collective employee policies and maybe have more of a comprehensive rewrite. I don't think this is a policy that's in a position where we can approve it at this point.
could we attach to in more of a comprehensive policy any, sometimes with policies we attach forms related to those policies. So any like contract or agreement that the employee would sign
I was just gonna say the same thing.
as an addendum to this? Because that might cover some of more information we need.
I just have to say, I'm not sure where to go with this. I mean, you have it or you don't. If we have ISB and others who wrote this, I'm not sure who I am to write a better one.
I can tell you,
How much we-
having worked
I
with a
mean,
lot
that's not
of,
my-
with a lot of employee handbooks and policies out there, this is antiquated and there's a lot better information out there. And I'm sure you see the same thing, Aldrich, is in here.
It's the most recent that they have, I guess is all I can say is,
I'm surprised that this is their current version for use.
I'm like,
I just don't know where to go.
To Sarah's
That's one to
point-
go to.
You go to Donna.
can't have policy that we
let her
know.
but it's not sufficient.
like, we can't have policy that we know people aren't gonna meet, because then what is it? I think that, like, removes the teeth out of what we're doing here.
It erodes all of our policies
Yeah.
because there's substantial knowledge that they're going to be violated.
So I think like, even if it takes a little while, it's just as, the same as having a policy that we know, like approving this today. If we know people can't meet it, we might as well not have it for a little bit and make it something that's more realistic. Because I think it's both too lenient and too strict in some areas. And
So I
so,
think if you go back to others and tell them that there are more than just one board member that agrees that this policy isn't sufficient, I think they have other tools in their toolbox. I would think that they have other tools to use.
I'll try.
I can't believe we'd be the only school district having an issue with this particular policy. If this was the recommended language in form, I'd be shocked. Maybe I'm wrong.
It seems like that's all they have.
I would
So-
propose taking it back, both to Allers and to ISB, and say this is a policy you're gonna have to work on because it isn't correct.
It's not keeping pace with.
And maybe we wait on it.
I think we can definitely wait. I think we can skip ISB and go straight to ours.
Okay.
That's where they're gonna go.
Okay. Is that acceptable to everyone? Okay. We'll hold on 456.
And I assume 456R1.
Right.
I think there's a period of time where business policy was no cell phone usage, no personal cell phone usage, and any business related to children was definitely none, because there could be an opportunity for private communication that would be inappropriate. And so like, this is a response to trying to provide a workable way for employees to use that. So it makes sense to me that they don't have it perfect yet, because it's a big swing.
Well, and in a year or two, it won't
We'll
be
get there.
perfect either because things change, so. So we'll put a hold on that one and try to revisit it later. The next form is literally a form for school clubs. Any questions on that one?
I'll move to approve 442 and 616 and table 456 and 456 R1.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Thanks for the discussion. Okay, we'll bring forward the SBRC request for English language learners.
Yes. So included in your board packet was the application that we annually do. And you can see the amount that we're requesting for spending authority is $1,078,400. It'll be 490, they'll round to that. And that is to account for the cost we've already spent for our EL kids in programs. That does not provide cash, but it is spent looking for the school budget review. Does anybody have any questions on that?
Move to approve.
Do I have a second? Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you.
Thank you.
So we'll go to D, the certified annual report, the budget report, highlights and approval. Any questions on that multi-page report? Okay, I'm going with no. All right. Do I have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's unanimous. We will move to the SBRC application for a special ed deficit. Any questions on that?
I'll move to approve.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, approved unanimously. Okay, we have the data from the asbestos removal. Have any questions or clarifications? We have the stall representative here, so thank you. No, okay. Do I have a motion?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay. Unanimous. Okay, we have a second action item from stall and kind of DLR to use a different sort of construction on the stairs. What do you call those?
Learning stairs.
Learning stairs, yeah.
Is this where they can sit and just
It's a
sit
wide,
and
and you can have a classroom.
So my question was, what does the alternative, what does it actually look like? Does it look different than what the rendering was when it was first designed?
From looking at it, you won't know any difference.
Okay.
It's still covered in the same wood.
Yep.
It's really the structure underneath it. So instead of the precast structure, it's a sloped concrete, metal deck concrete structure with those risers being framed out of steel studs.
Okay. Okay.
I guess I just had a question. Can anyone just explain to me, so we put this out to bid and no one bid on it. And now we've changed it. And we didn't put it out to bid. Should we have put it out to bid with this new method or thought process because of the thresholds and such that it meets? Or is it below such thresholds that it's okay for us to do it this way? I just want to understand that we follow policy and that this should not have gone out to bid.
I don't know.
What's the threshold, Mary Beth, 120? Because because this is only 68, so it may not have
Well,
needed to. What?
It's below.
It's below. Okay, that's what I thought, because I thought the threshold's 120 that it has to. Okay, then I'm okay. I just wanted to be sure that, because it sounds like we've changed it from what we originally put out, so I just wanted to make sure we were following the policy.
Well, about the only thing we'll have to do is make sure when they get the shop drawings done, they can stamp by an engineer, which they would have to anyhow. That'd be the only thing.
And that was under what I thought it was, but I just wanted someone to clarify it, or verify that for me. So.
Have a motion?
I'll move to approve.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous, Mary Beth? Okay, I have a motion. Let's see, no, we're doing the board policy. Okay. We don't have any board reports, so we'll move to the superintendent's report, which is an updated 10-year capital projects plan. Spreadsheet.
Do you have any questions on that? We've updated the fiscal year 19 costs with actual. We're going to be asking administrators and supervisors if they have any other projects that which should be added in as line item projects. You can see at the bottom, we're still maintaining those fund balances across our capital projects. And I just really like this forum, and I hope you do too. I was part of a presentation at a National Forecast Live conference just last week, and this was one of the things that was highlighted. And I think it gives a really good high-level one-page document for boards to look at.
Mary Beth, we talked about this before, and like one of my hopes is that these tools encourage our building level administrators to spend the money that they have, because I think sometimes we can feel like we're never going to get it again, so we don't spend it when we should be like making those little improvements. So the building level capital projects line, is that 15,000 capital per school?
Right, so each building was given $15,000 in capital projects funding to use at their discretion. Some used it like to purchase copier as an example. Some used it for some technology or other items. And I was just talking with Steve Bass about this today, and I probably had 2 people that fully utilized it and 1 building that almost utilized it.
Because it's
others that were
17.
just waiting.
Yeah.
Can you speak into the microphone?
I'm sorry.
Because there was only 17,000 in that line for actuals.
Yeah.
And I guess I wonder how we can, and this isn't directly related to approving this. I love this form. This is great. It's great information. I'm interested in how we can like encourage and as a board say, you know, we budgeted this money for you. We want you to spend that, because those are the things that build up over time. And those are, anyway, just food for thought, I guess.
I will pass that message along. I'll be meeting with board, with the building administrators here in another month to talk about their budget, and we'll talk about that at the time. So I'll tell them that the board encourages them to spend that too. That's good to know.
Because we're in a position to be able to do that. And I think it's preventative too, or could be preventative. Thank you, I appreciate it.
I really like this. This is a really, really good comprehensive document for all of our capital projects plan. Do you have, and we have our things from Stall that we get when we need to do the pay apps from Stall. Do we have anything similar to what John handed out Stall, an ongoing total for just the elementary school projects, so we can see?
We do. So as part of our audit, when you carry construction over from one year to the next, it's called construction in progress. And the auditors, we have a spreadsheet that we do for that details every line item project. And we can tell what we've spent to date as of June 30th and that type of thing.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Would it be, could you send the board that out? Thank you so much, Mary Beth. I'm so happy you have that.
Great. This is for information purposes, so we don't need to approve it. Thank you for sharing that, and thanks for representing us.
Yeah.
In Chicago. Okay. So do I have a motion to bring forward the consent agenda?
So
Second.
Are there any questions or clarifications on A through F?
Steve, can you remind me when we're getting the, our enrollment official, is that August or November, where we submit our?
Maybe in November 1. It's actually October 1st is the official date, and then we have technically until the 30th to work through the duplicates of that.
Are we gonna get then a sense of how open enrollment this year is standing up to previous years? Is that when we'll know?
That will be
Okay.
part of it, yes. Open ins and outs, as well as our resident students.
Okay. Any other questions?
Vote.
So, voting to approve all the consent agenda items. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, that's unanimous. Okay, nicely done. Do we have any discussion of other matters?
Maybe I'll just throw this out there, it's just in our discussion of other matters. I think that one thing that we should just make sure we encourage, and I didn't do a very good job of this until now, is that when other people speak at the board meeting that aren't part of the board, like, that they make sure they introduce themselves and who they are, because, while we all know them, and there's not very many people in this room, as people watch YouTube, us on YouTube, or if they're watching, they may not know who John is, so I think it's just really important that, you know, you maybe state your name and your title for
He did do
anybody
that.
that does. Yeah, but I don't know that this tall person did, for example, so, and like, again, John. Yeah, that's what I was
Oh, yeah.
talking about, just when other people talk, I think it would just be a good practice for us just to start encouraging them to remind themselves, and introduce themselves. But,
And I would encourage probably using the podium so that we can hear. But I think would be a practice to go back to. We get sloppy periodically, and that's my fault.
well, and all of us, we're all accountable. I could have easily said it before now.
Okay. So do I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
All in favor?
Second.
Second.
Aye.
Favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? I know, Mark, you want to stay.
I love it.
Okay, so after we take a small break, we'll be moving into a closed session. Any students that are here? Is there white sheets up back there? Okay, you get an extra half hour if you fill out those white sheets and give it to me. So you're going to want to do that. I'm sorry I didn't tell you that before. Thank you for everyone attending.